formulas, 8% and 5%, all on today's FednaBabble.
This is FednaBabble, where Kevin and Cassie make federal retirement benefits understandable for humans like you. These two don't hold back as they answer questions from the Fed Pilot workshops and webinars, or from questions submitted by you at fednababble.com.
Hi, I'm Cassie Knight, and welcome to today's FednaBabble, where we're talking about formulas, 8% and 5%.
Hi, and I'm Kevin Jones. Let's jump into the questions. The first one is, what is the formula for part-time? Cassie, what is the formula for part-time?
Don't laugh at me. I know it's a crazy face, right? But listen, this is something that is so complex, okay? Part-time service is its own little bird. It's like postal employees. It's something that is really dependent on how long you've been a part-time employee, how many hours you've worked as a part-time person. So let's just use simple numbers here. Okay. I'm
a simple man. That's good for me.
Right? That's good. If somebody has a high 3 of, we'll say if their pension is going to be $50,000 a year before their part-time proration factor.
Okay.
And they worked 30 hours their entire career.
Okay. That's
75% of a full-time employee, right? So their 50,000 would be reduced to 75% of that amount.
Good. So really overall in the workshop, the way I explain it is you go through the formula as if you're a full-time employee. So you go through the, your high 3 times your years of service. Even if it's part-time years of service, you're still your years of service times, let's say 1%, right? And that's the first formula. And then you get this number. And everyone says, okay, that's my number. But part-timers go one step extra and prorate that last number. And so really, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but this is what I understand, Cassie, is that OPM, this sounds kind of crazy, but OPM goes back through your part-time and adds up all the part-time hours you had during each pay period to make that proration. They have to go through all of that to figure that out. Is that correct?
Okay, so are you talking about somebody who has like different pieces of part-time service?
So if we just made it really, really simple, let's say, like you said, 30 hours for their whole career was always part-time. Right? But sometimes it would be 32, sometimes it would be 35, sometimes it's 40, sometimes it's 25. But, it's right around 30. They're not going to say, well, it's right around. They're going to go back and they're going to count it all up and add it all up together to get to that last number.
So it depends on how many hours they're slotted for, right?
Yes.
So if somebody has an agreement with their agency that they're only supposed to work 30 hours, but then one week they work 32 hours. Well, sometimes those 2 hours will count and sometimes they won't. Depends on the language and agreement that they may have with their agency. And so that's where it kind of gets nitty gritty. But what I can tell you is when somebody fills out their retirement paperwork, or even before, right? If they're looking at their certified summary of service, that really lays out their hours of part-time work, and you can do some math there, or we can. We do this often for our advisors, where we're really trying to look at that proration factor and what that looks like for a piece of service, because there are many employees who have broken up part-time service.
Right.
So say they're part-time for a little bit, then they go full-time and then they go back to part-time, or they're just part-time for a brief period. This is really common with women employees, and I don't mean to be sexist here, but
you are sexist. Look at you.
I know. I'm a woman. Give me a break. No, but for instance, when somebody takes maternity leave and they just go back to a part-time service for a couple of years while their little ones are younger, right?
Sure.
And then a couple of years later, they have another child. And so this is more common.
Yep. See that all the time.
Just is what it is. But at any point in your career, you can get what's called a certified summary of service. And we help employees, or we help advisors get that paperwork for employees to make sure that they can get it in and submit it, because that will help really distill down all service that an employee has, whether it's creditable or not creditable. It lays it all down and shows them exactly what is full-time service, part-time service, and obviously other types of service as well. But it really, you can do the math with that form and determine what that proration factor is overall and see how it's going to affect your pension.
Yeah. And in the end, what we're trying to find out is how will it affect your pension? So when we say what is the formula for part-time, we can give the basic formula, but that's not always the correct way that it's done. And in certain circumstances, especially when it's part-time now, full-time, part-time, no time, part-time, when it goes like that, then the formula is broken up and it's all over the place and it gets really complicated.
And we can lay out the formula, right? It's your pension times whatever proration factor there is.
Yep.
And that's the bottom line. But without that, knowing what that proration factor is for an employee, we cannot determine what that looks like for them.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Yep. And again, that's why federal employees have such a hard time. Well, I had part-time here, and okay, what will it really be? I think that's one of the beautiful things about your report, Cassie, is that federal employees don't have to figure it out. They can just get the report and know what it is. And I'll say this, not only what it is because of your report, but if you're to go to HR, they may or may not have had your part-time. If you were at a different agency, they may or may not know what that is, and they may or may not give you the right numbers, but you know what they are, or the federal employee knows what they are, and so they can give them, so your report will have that all in there.
Well, if the federal employee does, right?
If they haven't forgotten, I guess.
Well, and here's most of the time when there is part-time service, then if an employee does not know their proration factor or does not have their certified summary of service or a benefit statement that lists it, then we are automatically referring back to that certified summary of service for an employee to fill out, because we can't get an accurate pension number if they've had part-time service without knowing what the proration factor is. And that's what we're trying to accomplish, is making sure that people have solid information so they can work on, whatever financial plan they're looking at with the advisor. So our ultimate goal is to make sure that the employee has the best, solid, most up-to-date information for their benefits. And part of that is, knowing that proration factor if they've had part-time service. And so if you're an employee who's had part-time service, and you haven't done a certified summary of service, do it. No. Or find out if your agency knows what that is. Most advisors.
I would say even most HR people don't even know what that is, or that they can even do it. I've heard that there's so much pushback from employees saying, I want to go do this, and HR says, no, you can't until you retire. But that's not true. That, you can go get that now, and everyone should go get that. No, not tomorrow, today.
Right. And that it says it right in the instructions. That's what boggles my mind about the certified summary of service. It's, yes, these forms are included in a retirement paperwork package. However, in the instructions, it says that if you need to clarify your service, that you're able to submit it in. And we simply send that back to the advisor and let them know, hey, this is where it says it. Please let the employee know and point this out to their HR department that they can submit this form to certify their service. That's what it's for.
Yep.
So if you can do that, way before retirement, that is best.
Yep. Absolutely. Well, that question just took 10 minutes, half our time. That's okay. But we got into other subjects at the same time, right? And it's interesting that a small question like this, there isn't an easy answer. It depends, of course, right? All right. Question number 2. If I retire at 67, will my Social Security still increase 8% a year, or do I have to be working? I guess there should be a question mark at the end that I did not put that there, but there is a question mark, right? Yes. We just typo, whatever. But at 67, so I assume that this person hit their full retirement age at 67, and they're wondering, if I hit my full retirement age, does it still increase at 8% a year, or do you have to be working? And that's a little bit more complicated.
It is. The short answer is yes, it still increases by 8%. Okay. However, you also still have to be working to a certain degree or earn a certain amount if it's going to be the full 8%, because it's based on your earnings.
Right.
I think I said that right. That's a lot. And really, I would say go to your Social Security office and ask them specifically about your situation.
Yep. And also, I'll throw in there that you have to not be drawing Social Security. So you can't draw your Social. As soon as you draw your Social Security, it's locked in at that amount for the most part, right? And it's not increasing by 8% a year anymore. So as long as if you retire, and I'll add in there, and are not drawing Social Security at 67, does it continue at 8%? Pretty much yes, but again, you have to go check it out.
Yeah, and I want to make sure that we're clear on what this 8% is increasing by. Okay, this is the 8% of that full retirement age amount. Okay,
correct.
So don't expect it to be 8% of your salary or some other weird number. It is 8% of that full retirement amount at the time. So if you're 67 and you have $3,000 coming in or estimated in your Social Security statement, then it's 8% of that $3,000.
Right.
Monthly.
And that amount, that amount is called the PIA, the primary insurance amount. And really everything is based off of that number right there. More or less, whatever. That is that is the benchmark number for every, I don't want to say federal employee, because again, this is a federal just a American worker benefit as well.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And so this is an 8% on that amount. So if your income increases, obviously that amount's going to increase. And so then the 8% is going to be based on that larger amount. But so I wanted to make sure that we're clear on what that 8% meant.
Good.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you.
As easy as we could make it.
Yeah. It's hard to give somewhat simple explanations without diving in too deep and say, okay, because I think on each of these, we could spend another 20 minutes on each one of these, going a little bit deeper. And then if you're in this situation, it could also be this. But these are the basic answers to these questions. Okay, next question. Yeah. How do I determine what the 5% is in my TSP? So I'm assuming this person is a FERS employee wanting to contribute 5% to get the 5% match.
Right. And so that 5% is based on their annual salary amount. Okay. So if they're making $100,000 a year, then it's going to be $5,000. right? Because that's 5% of $100,000.
Great.
So it is based on that annual salary before taxes, gross, whatever that amount shows on your pay stub or LES. It's 5% of that amount. That's not always easy to determine.
Now, okay, Cassie, I've got a question for you because, excuse me, I get to be in front of federal employees and talk to them about their benefits. Personally, I have never been inside to look at someone's TSP, right? Because I'm up in front of them teaching. Having helped federal employees in the past and working with advisors right now, you've been in TSP before and have seen that. Is there some type of, I don't know, does it show or does it indicate in there where they, what the full amount is, and then, you can do this much TSP, or what 5% is, or do federal employees have to figure that out themselves, what the 5% is?
No, they can choose a specific dollar amount or a percentage amount. And so if they want to just do a flat 5% of their income, then they can elect to do that inside TSP.gov. They simply have to log into their TSP account and look at their contribution amount and select to contribute a certain percentage. So my husband is a federal employee, he's DOD, and he likes to contribute 15% to his TSP. So it's strictly based on that percentage, though. He didn't have to do the math to figure out what it is, because he's not a math whiz like that. No, don't get me wrong. I love my husband. He works great with his hands. He's a mechanic type, get in there and fix it kind of guy. So I don't mean him any disrespect when I say that he's
of course.
He will admit it himself.
Of course, but many people are not math whizzes, and they don't. And honestly, what is it based off of? And they're confused on that. They can just go in and it's set at 5% and be done, or 15% and be done. Nice and
I
easy.
think that's huge for special provision employees as well, because their amount on their pay stub doesn't show their actual pay amount, because they have that AUO or LEAP pay that is also included, that extra 25% bump, and that's not shown in their pay on their pay stub. And so if they want to contribute a certain amount, or a certain percentage, I should say, then they really need to go into TSP.gov and just select a certain percentage, because you have to do that backwards math to really find out what their pay is and find out what that 5% is based on.
Right. A little bit more confusing, which is another reason why working with an advisor is so preferable, and getting your report. Again, fednababble.com, you can get Cassie's report, but oh my goodness, to have to go through all those calculations, no, you don't have to. It can all be done for you at,
There
it's
is
nice and
an
easy.
easy button, I promise.
Yeah, yes. So good. That's the last question there. So everyone, if you would, please like, subscribe, follow, and share Fedna Babble with your friends, because your coworkers need to understand this too. They need to learn this stuff before they retire. Cassie, any last words of wisdom?
Take action on your retirement. Don't let these benefits bog you down. Don't think that they're going to work best for you when you plan them at retirement.
Right.
Start looking into them now, and really, understand them now, so that way you have the best financial success moving forward.
Great. Thanks, Cassie.
Mm-hmm.
To get Cassie's comprehensive report on your federal retirement benefits at no cost, no obligation, and no sales pitch, go to fednababble.com. While you're there, submit a question for them to answer on the show.